What's up, everybody? Eric here, driver lineup, a drive to thrive. World's okay steering wheel holder, checking in with you guys for a video that is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not pretending to be. So don't take this video as financial advice. Whenever I see someone say, hey, I came to Prime because of your videos, I always think, oh boy, hopefully it works out because I don't want to get blamed. But anyway, I'm pre-coffee, so I'm trying to wake up at a hotel on my way to Springfield, Missouri. I'm in Conway, Arkansas, of all places. Had a long drive yesterday to get up to the Prime Terminal and had some stops to make, some things to take care of on the way. So I'm headed up to the terminal today to get my new truck, today is Friday. So I should have a video later today about that. But anyway, I want to do a quick video addressing probably two of the most frequently asked questions. One is about being a fleet owner and the money that you make. And I'm going to do a separate video about that probably tomorrow or Sunday once I'm in the new truck that's coming. And it's probably not the answer that you think it's going to be. Let me just put it this way. If you don't already have your trucks paid off, it's not as profitable as a lot of people think it is to run a small fleet of trucks. So you may say, well, why would you do it? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. And I'm very much, I love it. I'm going to continue ordering trucks as soon as I can, or as soon as they allow it. The second they announce that you can order a new truck, I'm ordering a new truck. So it is a good thing. I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea. But there's some really important things that I think you all should, at least you should think about. Specifically, the difficulty I see in having just two trucks. I've really crunched numbers. I've really done the math, and 3 trucks and beyond liberate you in ways that 2 trucks can't. So the 2 truck is kind of like, millionaires and billionaires will always say the first million was the hardest to make, because after that million, it kind of makes, it's a snowball effect. Well, I think that the first 2 trucks in a fleet are the hardest. But anyway, I'll get into that in a future video. In this one, and I got a text message on this morning of what should I put in my e-fund? What should I save? And there's no real way for me to answer that, but I wanted to give you guys some things to think about. So I was kind of going back and forth, laying in bed, trying to convince myself not to go back to sleep because I could just go back to sleep for a few hours, but I got shit to do. But so I got into this text message, and I was texting one of my drivers too, and the Peterbilt is out of the shop, so I was talking with him. But I was kind of going back and forth and trying to ascertain as to where this individual was. And I basically said, for me, what I tried to do is figure out how I could find an additional $500 a month. And this was back when Jen and I were team driving. How I could find an additional $500 a month minimum and funnel that into an e-fund or a savings account. Now, for a long time, we did it just into savings accounts. We didn't have an e-fund for a long time. It was Lyle with No Hippie Trucking and Transportation that really got me into the e-fund mindset. But it was, how do we identify a minimum of $500 a month? And it was even in the tough times. And right now is tough times for all of us, right? When you go buy beef or anything like that, it's just tough. These are not good times economically. And so even in these times, how do you find that minimum of $500 a month? because that's $6,000 a year. And the instinct, the gut is to react and say, well, there's no way I can afford that. I can't find $500 a month. Like it's way too hard to make it. And we thought that too. We thought that too in our tough times, way back when we first started, first year, when we were just trying to crawl out of our debt problems and trying to crawl out of our really bad economic situation. We thought the same thing. Like there's no way. There's just no way we can do that. But really, I think for us, the amount of money that you just blow while you're out on the road as a professional driver became more easily, profoundly obvious to us when Jen and I were a team truck, and therefore we saw the cost of blowing that money for two people. So if you're on a team truck and you're not with your significant other, or you're not, with your wife or husband, you're only seeing your cost, and it's a little bit easier to ignore that or not really pay attention and thinking about it. But for us, because it was two of us, it was blatantly obvious. And if we went and got breakfast in the morning somewhere like Denny's or IHOP or something, and then maybe ate one more meal at the end of the day, and then just got like little trinkets and snacks or salads or something, we easily could be at $75 or more a day between the two of us. So you're talking like you're approaching, $600 or $700 a week in just buying like meals like that at truck stops, and then there's all the other things like just being really lazy and not using the app to get coffee and things like that. And I always thought, well, coffee's just, just $1 something. Yeah, but now you're getting into, well, that's $50 or $60 a month. There's just lots of things that if you really like get out a notepad and start crunching and I mean like, and you should, and do this. Like, again, this is not financial advice, but if you're saying to me, there's no way I can do that, get a notepad and a pen. I know it's a foreign concept right now. When someone asks me if I have a pen these days, I'm like, oh, what? But get a notepad and a pen, and for a month, write down the total of everything you spend in fast food or breakfast burritos and coffee and all the things that you're spending in a month while you're out on the road. Write that down and total it up. I bet you would be absolutely astounded by what you're spending that you don't have to. So when we started getting really aggressive about just making sure that we're hitting Walmarts or grocery stores, or when we're home going to Sam's Club and Costco, when we started getting just absolutely, brutally aggressive about it, there's $500 plus a month. That there it is. Like there it is. It really made that big of a difference. So that was the first thing, was really kind of looking at and visualizing what we were spending while we were out on the road, putting it on paper so you could really see it. And it hurts when you really see it. You don't feel it so much when while you're out there. You think, well, this combo meal is only $8 or $9. I'm hungry. It's been a long day. It's only $8 or $9. So you just think of it in terms of it being just $8 or $9. But what if you already did that earlier today, and then you bought a bunch of Gatorades or something that are like $3 that you could have gotten at Costco or Sam's Club for $1.50? When you start adding those things up, all of a sudden you've got a lot of money. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when we initiated the E-Fund, that was probably one of the biggest things for us, because and we did a lot too. I just went straight full throttle and went 20 cents per mile to the E-Fund, which in some weeks was painful. But the accrual, it's pre-coffee accrual of money in that e-fund was substantial. You do the math. If you're running 2,400 miles as a solo a week, and you're putting 20 cents a mile, you know, it's substantial. As a team, our e-fund was just astronomical. Now, it meant that our settlements were obviously 20% less, or, you know, don't ask me to do math right now, but it meant that our settlements were substantially less, not 20% less, but substantially less. And on weeks that we were struggling, you know, it was a struggle, but the amount of money that was accruing in that e-fund was just insane. I've got like $13,000 in e-fund right now. So it's now, granted, it's being, you know, I got to use that to pay my drivers bonuses, pay for hotels, you know, their downtime, tires, things like that. So that's what it's used for now that I run a fleet. But my point is, it accrues really quickly. And it's money that you don't really see coming into your bank account, so you don't think, well, I'll just tap into that. You know, you still can. You can still access it, but it's not as easy as just going and using a debit card. So it puts another layer between you and spending that money quickly on things that you don't really need to spend that money for. But if you have things you really need to spend that money for, you still have access to your e-fund. And so, you know, again, this is only relevant for prime drivers. If you're not a prime driver, maybe you don't have an e-fund facility that you can utilize with whatever carrier or whatever you're doing. But with prime, you can just carve off that money. And I think that's, and 20% is probably really high, especially for solo drivers. But even when I was, even when I was running solo, I would still do like 8 cents per mile. And and it just, the accrual was just amazing how quickly money started building there. So it's a matter of really restructuring your mindset on what you're spending and discipline. And our time in the truck for that 3 years, for me, 3 years, was, I don't want to compare it to the military. So please, if you served out there, thank you. And I'm not making a comparison to you serving, but I do liken it just sort of metaphorically to going through basic training and doing a tour, like that really metaphorically. Obviously they're two very different things, but when you go through boot camp, which was PSD and TNT, and then you go do your tour overseas somewhere, you're eventually, provided nothing bad happens to you, you're going to come home, right? And that tour's over with. So the tour had its mission and its purpose, and it could be that you felt a profound sense of duty. And in that journey, you're also getting college tuition, and your bills are being paid, and you got health insurance, and et cetera, right? There's a lot of good reasons for it, but it has an objective, and at the end of it, you're going to come home and you're going to be able to move on to other things, move on to different stages of your life. That was the time in a truck for us. It was very, very difficult. PSD and TNT were extremely difficult and challenging. Probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life. Not for the reasons that most people would think, but just the mind F that it was, and just the grit and gruel that it was. The time in our truck, look, we made the best of it. You've all seen it here on YouTube, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's a good way to live. I don't agree with that. I think sleeping especially on a team truck, sleeping when the truck is moving, and then saying hi to your co-driver on your way to the front seat while they're on their way to the sleeper every single day is not a good way to live. It was really tough on us in terms of our bodies. It was tough on us in terms of our mental capacity. It was a really hard time. But we had a mission. We were on a mission. So the time that we were in the truck was not the time to go buy things and do PlayStation and all that stuff. That was not the time. That was the time to just focus on getting ourselves financially secure and stable. That was the mission. That was the goal. That was the objective. And if you have other things that are more important to you than that, if PlayStation games and Xbox games and, whatever else that I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, like, if you have other things that you're spending that money on while you're out there that are not lending themselves to that mission and that objective, then you're probably not going to get as far ahead as you could. That's just, and I know some are going to say, well, we have to try and make the best of it while we're out here. That's true. I'm not saying that you shouldn't or couldn't. I'm just saying, like, just focus and organize yourself around math of what is it that I can cut out of my life on a daily basis that is going to help me save money substantially in order to get ahead, because we need to find ways to get ahead. If you go through a trucking career and it doesn't get you ahead, that to me is kind of sad in a lot of ways. A trucking career should get you ahead because it is not a good life. There's better ways to live life. Now, some really like it. And I'm not talking to those of you who love the lifestyle, and I get that. It totally makes sense. But if you love to be home and be with your families and go fishing on a local lake or something, like, whatever it is, like, you need to really prioritize things and view this time in the truck as your tour of duty. You know what I mean? And what objectives are you trying to accomplish? And those have to be the top priority. Otherwise, you're just doing time. You're literally just doing time. You're not going to get ahead. So anyway, all that to say, there's not really an easy answer to the question of, hey, what should I do to save? How much should I save? I don't know. I think for some, maybe who knows? It's like, that's a custom thing to you. But I will say that I found that in my math while I was out on the road, if I were solo, I could restructure myself to being able to save roughly $5,000 to $6,000 a year. And as a team, we were able to save twice that by restructuring our priorities and our objectives. And this is, don't say, well, it's because you're making this or because YouTube that. When we came to Prime, we had nothing. I was more financially devastated than I've ever been in my entire life when I came to Prime. And clawed out of that from like the bottom, like not even the bottom of the barrel, like the soil underneath the bottom of the barrel. So it's possible for anyone in any financial situation. Like I said before in videos, I used the $200 a week that they loaned me during PSD at Prime. Absolutely had to keep the phone on. I had to. So, it's possible for anyone, but I think instead of focusing on, and maybe it's good for you to focus on a number, maybe you want to raise X amount of dollars or save X amount of dollars. Maybe you need that number. But I think the more important thing, if you're starting to ask yourself this question, is what are your objectives and what is your mission, and are you going to make that your priority? And if you're going to make that your priority, then you really need to visualize and look at what your costs are, what you're spending throughout each month and what you can change. And then you have to be diligent and disciplined to know that you have to stick with that for 6 months, a year, or longer. Because if you only stick with it for a month, you're going to say, well, man, all that sacrifice I did for the last 4 weeks, and I only have $350 in this account. Well, you can't look at it that way. You have to really think of, yeah, but a month later, it's going to be $700. A month later, it's going to be over $1,000. You know, like that's the way you have to, it just takes discipline, it takes patience, and it's hard. But, you know, I guess that would be really my answer. So you know who you are. I told you I'd make a video. It was hard for me to say all this in text message, and I don't know if it helps or not, but hopefully this helps somebody. Hopefully it gives you something to think about. You guys be safe, make good decisions, and as always, drive to thrive. I'll talk with you soon.